I think we all really want to be inspired. I mean, that's why we're here today, right? And we want to be inspired in a way that matters. And in turn, we want to inspire others in a way that matters, in a way that makes a difference, something worthy of sharing. But I think sometimes we second guess ourselves as to whether or not our own stories matter, if our own stories are worthy of sharing. And I think maybe we've developed a warped sense of what matters, of what is beautiful or inspirational or important. And in a time of unprecedented digital connection, we still find ourselves feeling a little overwhelmed, intimidated, and decidedly disconnected from the types of experiences that nurture some of the best parts of ourselves. So maybe it's time that we ask ourselves if we're missing out on the chance to experience the kind of connection that comes from putting ourselves out there because we don't think that what we have to share is good enough. That inspiration comes by way of viral YouTube videos and is measured in things like likes and retweets, and that what we have to offer is less than in comparison. And maybe it's time that we take back the moments that we fill with distraction and be present in our own moments, in our own stories, live in our stories, and give them life. My interest in telling stories runs deep. It's what I love to do. It's what I'm good at. I'm a storyteller, and my love of writing and sharing stories is matched only by my love of connecting and listening and learning with other people through their stories. But even I've taken my own stories for granted in the past. I underestimated the importance of my moments, my stories. And even more so, I underestimated the strength and inspiration that comes with connecting with somebody else through theirs. And I only recognized how important all of our life stories are when I started missing moments in my own life. I have an uncooperative brain. You're easy, this gets better. More specifically, I was born with a malformation in my brain and a malformed spinal cord. I have an uncooperative nervous system and an immune system that has a whole lot of time on its hands, apparently, and can't seem to tell the good guys from the bad. In the past several years, I've had surgeries on my brain and spinal cord. I've spent nights secretly working from hospital beds. I've embraced new treatment ideas with hope, and I've traded failed treatment ideas with disappointment. See, it's super funny, right? Stay with me. I've learned to live with one new normal after another, and it is something that you learn to live with. The brain is an incredible organ, and it's amazing what you can do to teach it and shape it to work in ways that it doesn't work so great anymore. So with a little faith and a lot of support, I live a life, a beautiful life, with an immeasurable amount to be grateful for. But it's not without frustration. As part of my current state of uncooperative nervous system, I developed intractable epilepsy. It's a type of epilepsy that cannot yet be controlled with treatment or medication. Epilepsy affects the body and the brain in a staggering number of ways. It quite literally steals moments of your life away. In the moments before, during, and after a seizure, your time, moments, memory are generally replaced with a black hole of sorts. A black hole that steals away those memories and it replaces it with confusion or fear. But beyond the time lost to seizure activity, there are very serious short-term and long-term effects of an uncontrolled seizure disorder, including memory loss and cognitive dysfunction. Cognitive function is defined as, because I have it right here, a group of mental processes that includes attention, memory, producing and understanding language, learning, reasoning, and problem solving. And the situation that I am in now has begun to affect my cognitive abilities. This has proven to be the hardest thing for me to accept. Just the fact that I am holding note cards to tell my own story for the first time in my life really pisses me off. But there it is, and here we are. So we will move on to the next note card. And all of this isn't just hard to accept because I fancy myself kind of a smarty pants. Totally am. But it's especially upsetting because it's getting harder to write. I'm a storyteller, and it's getting harder to tell stories. And I've always felt that as long as I could write, that the best of me remained intact. My ability to write and do it well, really well, it's fine, has always served as a personal benchmark for me, as it were, for holding on to my brain as it functions as me, Sarah. If I can still tell a good story, I'm still here. So pieces of me are departing, and pieces of me are already gone. But I sit sometimes and I think, at what point do I lose me, the me I identify with now, the Sarah that has always been? I mean, it's your mind, it's your brain. How do you even begin to wrap your mind around that? I don't know. Now, more obvious neurological and physical changes have been happening for years. But it was an afternoon earlier this year when the full impact of how this affects me really hit me. I was looking through a box of old vacation photos, and I lingered on a photo that my husband had taken of me a few years ago. And the first thing I thought when I looked at that photograph of myself was, I remember her. Like it wasn't me. Like it was an old dear friend that I hadn't seen in a while. But that sense of nostalgia very quickly turned to a profound sadness. And I felt an odd sort of panic, a need to scramble and catch her and hold on tighter this time. And I remember being so angry because I didn't appreciate her when she was here. And then I realized why I felt so sad. I realized that I miss her. And then I wondered if my husband misses her too. But it was the next thought that marched in and sat down on my chest. My girls will never know her. Because they were so young. The woman in those photos was gone before their memories could really take hold of her. More than anything that day, it was that thought that broke my heart. And I wept. I sat on the floor of my closet so that no one would hear me, and I wept. For how badly I wanted them to know her, how badly I wanted them to love her, for how terribly much I wanted her back. I catch glimpses of her now and then, and in those moments I try to get her to stay. I tell stories about her. I cling to the memories I do have. I secretly wait for her to come back. I play the part of capital H, her, as long as I can, until she's tucked away in a crowded, damaged brain, or whisked from my sight in the throes of the next electrical storm. Her departure was subtle enough It didn't stir my concern until she was far enough gone that I couldn't reach her. To this day, I tell myself, if I had noticed the small stuff, I'd have held her more tightly. I'd have chronicled her days with the most perfect words. I'd have written her lines so you could hear her laughter and the syllables. I'd have kept her safe from the storm. And I'd have kept her stories for my daughters. The Sara I am now has so much more to do that I can't waste a whole lot of time ugly crying on my closet floor, lamenting over the Sara that I've lost. The Sara that I am feels like less than. But I am trying every day to see her as different than instead. I'm trying to be kind to myself. I'm trying to be patient with myself. Over the years, molehills grew into mountains, and I lost my footing time and again, so I let more of the things that I love to do go. I stopped traveling and speaking and teaching. I set off to conquer the flatlands instead, and I told myself that it would be enough. The last time I spoke on stage was nearly 2 years ago, and I did so without her, and it was miserably apparent. And I wasn't kind to myself about it, and my patience had run out. What was once a labor of love had lost all the love. I haven't taken the stage since until today. Today, with all of you, I am back at the foot of the mountain, and I am unsteady and unsure, and I am holding a stack of note cards. But I'm finally unafraid. Next card. And I only found the courage to tell this story, and this is important, in someone else's story. Another writer had the guts to share her experience with her own uncooperative brain and the impact that seizures had on her. She wrote about the woman that she lost, and she wrote about the woman that she became, and all of the ugly, messy, honest stuff in between. I devoured that book in one night. Her words were haunting and terrifying and validating all at once. And all the while I read those words, my own words hovered over every page. Thank you for being brave enough to write this. I wish I was, but I'm not. And taking some time and sharing the story with others and letting her words live amongst my thoughts for a while, that sentiment began to change until I got to thank you for being brave enough to write this story. Maybe I can too. It's getting harder to write, so I will just push myself to write more. I figure that if I write enough crap, something really good's got to shake out sooner or later. I will challenge today's distractions with more careful attention, and when I can't find her anywhere, I will search harder. I will listen for her more carefully. I will reach out my hand farther, and when I just can't reach her anymore, I will reach out for someone else's hand. And maybe I'll find her in their stories. And I will treasure the stories that different than Sara has yet to tell, because she deserves that too. Look, all the stories, all the moments, the big stuff, the mountains, and the quiet moments in between, they matter. And while you may not lose them in the way that I do, if you don't slow down, breathe them in, let them take residence for a while, you could be missing out on some of the most beautiful connections of your lifetime, and I promise you that's true. We can all look back through photos and see the person we used to be. You don't have to be sick to look back on something and wish you'd paid more attention or appreciated something more or seen the inspiration that you just missed the first time around. But you might be able to get something back in a way that I can't. And you can start by paying attention to the moments that aren't fit for Facebook. You can find the moments that move you, and you can tell the stories that grow from those moments, and the people that love you, and people that don't even know you, they will remember them. And they will carry your stories for you when perhaps a time comes when you've forgotten the words. And I was wrong to underestimate my stories. So I've begun to share them as often as I can manage to get them from this ridiculous brain to the page. They do matter. They matter quietly. They matter to somebody who needs to hear my voice on a day when the load on their shoulders is a little bit heavier than normal. They matter to someone who sees their own words in my story when they think no one else could understand. And they matter to someone who needs to know that the unknown can be navigated and survived, and that there are incredible stories yet to discover. And that when they find the courage to return to their mountain, they don't have to do it alone. If you want to be inspired, you just have to start paying attention. When you start paying attention, the moments that inspire you find a place in your stories. Give those moments your voice by any means necessary. Write them, dance them, sing them, paint them, film them, build them, plant them, honor them, share them. Your voice, your stories, they matter. They will come through in the things that you love to do most. Being the voice that somebody needs in the moment that they need it matters. In small ways, in big ways, in ways you may never even know about. It matters. And someone, somewhere, needs your voice right now.